The first thing Varnax noticed about Earth was how its inhabitants insisted on moving constantly, even when doing so served no practical purpose. Jogging, for example, it baffled him. On his homeworld, Rek'Tal, movement without necessity was considered inefficient, even suspicious. So when his academic exchange brought him to the University of Colorado's Interstellar Integration Program, he made a point to study human locomotion habits up close. That's how he found himself at 7:03 a.m. standing awkwardly near the edge of a paved jogging trail in Boulder, watching creatures voluntarily bounce down a path while damp with perspiration and listening to something called power playlists. The air was thin at this altitude, which made it worse. Varnax's respiratory system had long since adapted, but the humans? They just kept running. "Morning," called one of them, not slowing down, not even looking winded. "A woman with a dog." The dog wore shoes. Varnax blinked twice. "Morning," he replied, unsure if it was required. "Hey, Varnax," someone else shouted. "You're really out here, huh?" Varnax turned. Gregory Penner jogged into view, his gait steady but not too fast. Varnax had met Gregory 3 weeks ago during a joint planetary psychology seminar. Gregory had a calm demeanor and a habit of asking questions that made professors pause. He wore a loose gray t-shirt, shorts, and at the moment a grimace. "You are experiencing discomfort," Varnax observed. Gregory slowed to a walk. "Yeah. Twisted my ankle yesterday jumping off a curb. Not broken, I think, but it's stiff." "And yet you persist in running," Varnax said. "Why?" "Helps me feel better. Gets the blood moving. I keep it light." "You are in pain," Varnax insisted. "Sure," Gregory said, "but it's manageable. Besides, I've got a half marathon next month. Can't fall behind." Varnax's ocular ridge twitched. "You are preparing to run 21 kilometers. While injured?" "Yup." He jogged off again, favoring his left side slightly. Varnax recorded the event in his field journal with a stylus that clicked loudly in the morning stillness. Later that day, Varnax met with his supervising researcher, Dr. Helga Tran, at the university's cross-species behavior lab. She was human, older, and had an uncanny ability to read alien expressions. "You look puzzled," she said, sliding a coffee across the table. "I have observed humans engaging in willful self-inflicted discomfort," Varnax said, sitting stiffly. "Gregory Penner is jogging on a sprained ankle." Helga sipped her coffee. "And that surprises you?" "Yes. Pain is a deterrent. A biological signal to cease activity." She nodded. "For most species, sure. But you've got to understand something fundamental about humans. We don't always avoid pain. Sometimes we chase it. For growth. For pride. For distraction. Sometimes just because we don't want to feel useless. That is illogical. Maybe. But it's common. Especially here. Runners are some of the worst offenders." Varnax absorbed this. "So Gregory Penner is not unique?" "Oh no, definitely not. But he might be dumber than most. A sprain's no joke. Has he sought medical attention?" "No idea," Helga said. "You could ask him." Varnax did. That evening, he found Gregory seated on the grass near the university's south quad, lacing up a fresh pair of shoes. His left ankle was wrapped in a compression sleeve, slightly swollen. "You are still running?" Varnax asked. "Trying to," Gregory said. "Slower today. Just a mile or two. You should be resting." "Probably. But I've got PT tomorrow and the doc said as long as I'm careful." "Look, I know it doesn't make sense to you." "It does not." Gregory stood, winced, then shrugged. "Pain isn't always the enemy. Sometimes it's part of the process." Varnax opened his journal again. Humans form complex relationships with pain. Not merely avoidant. Sometimes adversarial. Occasionally cooperative. Gregory chuckled. "That last one's a stretch." Two students walked past, arguing about protein intake. One was carrying a gallon of milk. Varnax ignored them. "I will accompany you," he said. "To run?" "No. To observe." Gregory waved him along, and they set off down the sidewalk that curved around the athletic fields. Gregory's limp was more pronounced now, but he kept going. Varnax recorded every step. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Gregory stopped near a drinking fountain and leaned on one leg. "Okay, yeah. That's enough for today. You were limping more than before." "Yeah. It's a little worse now, Gregory admitted. That was dumb. You admit your behavior was irrational? Yup. And yet you will likely do it again. Gregory nodded. Also yup. Varnax stared at him. Fascinating. 2 days later, Gregory didn't show up to their shared seminar. When Varnax inquired, Helga raised an eyebrow. He's at urgent care, she said. Got imaging done. Turns out that ankle was worse than he thought. Varnax's ocular ridge twitched. Fracture. Hairline, yeah. He's in a boot now. Varnax visited him that afternoon. Gregory sat in a recliner in his tiny apartment, his left leg elevated and encased in a black walking boot. He looked annoyed, not miserable. Told you it was dumb, he said. You have learned a valuable lesson, Varnax offered. Hopefully. You must now cease movement for several weeks, correct? 6, probably. They didn't cast it, so that's something. And you are still displeased. Because I hate being idle. It's not just about fitness. It's how I process things. Stress, frustration. Running helps. Now I feel stuck. Varnax took a long moment before speaking. On Rek'Tal, we celebrate the stillness. Pain is a signal to retreat, to reflect. Rest is sacred. Yeah, well, here it means you're falling behind. Falling behind what? Everyone else. Varnax tilted his head. You compete constantly, even with yourselves. Gregory laughed. Yeah, it's kind of our thing. Over the next week, Varnax visited often. He brought books, asked questions, and listened to Gregory's increasingly restless complaints. Gregory, in turn, explained the culture of endurance. He showed Varnax documentaries of marathons, ultra-races through deserts, people collapsing in finish lines, grinning through tears. Varnax found it both horrifying and impressive. By the 3rd week, Gregory could walk short distances without the boot. He still limped, but he was optimistic. I start physical therapy next Monday, he said. They'll check my range. Maybe give me some light resistance work. You will not resume jogging immediately? No. I learned my lesson. Varnax nodded slowly. But, Gregory added, I'll probably be back out there in a month or so. Gotta rebuild. Varnax didn't understand it. Not completely. But he respected the consistency. During one of their final sessions, Varnax presented a small report to Helga. Humans do not avoid pain, it read. They contextualize it. Sometimes they endure it for reward. Sometimes to prove resilience. Sometimes because they cannot stand stillness. Pain is not their wall. It is their ladder. Helga read it twice, then looked up. You got all this from watching one runner? He was sufficient. Helga grinned. You're starting to sound like one of us. I hope not, Varnax said. You are all very reckless. Gregory recovered fully within 7 weeks. He didn't return to jogging until after his PT cleared him, and even then he started with slow walks. Varnax walked with him often, sometimes asking questions, sometimes just observing. He never attempted to jog himself, but he found the ritual oddly calming. One morning, as Gregory jogged ahead, Varnax stood at the trail's edge again. The air was crisp. The sun was low. Humanity's need to push through pain still baffled him, but he could no longer deny its strange beauty. The cafeteria in the Interstellar Integration Hall smelled faintly of cinnamon and industrial sanitizer. Varnax sat rigidly at a corner table, flanked by 2 fellow Rek'Tal exchange students, Kriv and Lauren, both of whom had acquired the human habit of draping jackets over chairs for reasons no one could adequately explain. Across from them, Gregory balanced a plastic tray with a slice of banana bread and a cup of something frothy and beige. His walking boot was gone, replaced by a flexible brace tucked under his sock. He moved carefully but with a newfound confidence that Varnax suspected bordered on overconfidence. Kriv's mandibles clicked in an uneven rhythm, a sign of cognitive dissonance. You were ambulatory within 49 solar days of a bone fracture? Gregory shrugged and peeled back the paper on his muffin. Yeah. Doc said it was healing well. Been doing rehab exercises every morning. Balance work, resistance bands, that sort of thing. That is absurd, Kriv buzzed. Your species regenerates skeletal tissue at that rate without augmentation? Well, not always. Depends on the person. And the break. and the calcium levels, and whether you're dumb enough to try running on it before it's ready. Varnax tapped his stylus against the table. Your recovery exceeded expectation due to compliance with therapeutic protocols? I wouldn't say I was perfect about it, Gregory admitted. Skipped a few ice baths. Got frustrated with the slow pace. But yeah, mostly stuck with it. Physical therapist said consistency's key. Lauren blinked both sets of eyelids. You subjected yourself to additional discomfort voluntarily? Gregory took a bite of banana bread and spoke around it. Well, yeah, rehab hurts, but it's better than limping forever. Kriv leaned forward. You experienced trauma, received inadequate rest, then endured further controlled trauma to return to behavior that caused the initial trauma? I mean, when you put it that way, that is a feedback loop of suffering. Gregory laughed. Only if you think about it as suffering. I think of it as progress. Lauren emitted a low-frequency hum of concern. Your species has a destabilized relationship with bodily integrity. You could say that. Varnax opened a new page in his journal. Gregory, do you believe humans are inherently motivated by discomfort? Not discomfort itself, but avoiding stagnation? Yeah, we hate feeling stuck. Doesn't matter if it's physical, emotional, whatever. We're wired to push forward. Kriv sat back, mandibles clicking in a slow, uneven rhythm. On Rek'Tal, injury is a signal to return to stillness. A chance to recalibrate internal systems. That sounds peaceful, Gregory said. It is efficient. Gregory took another bite. But don't you ever get bored just sitting around healing? No, Kriv said. We dream vividly when immobile. Varnax scribbled something down and didn't elaborate. Later that week, Gregory invited Varnax to observe one of his physical therapy sessions. The clinic wasn't far, just across campus, tucked between the life sciences tower and a parking garage that smelled perpetually of wet asphalt. It was a low-ceilinged room with bright lights, padded tables, and shelves of neatly organized resistance bands. The therapist, a woman named Carla, greeted Gregory with a nod and gestured toward the balance platform. Let's reassess your single leg stance, she said. Left side only. Don't compensate with your hip. Gregory stood on the foam pad and lifted his right foot. He wobbled immediately. Too much sway, Carla said. Engage your glutes. I'm trying, Gregory muttered. Try harder. Varnax stood silently by the wall, watching as Carla adjusted Gregory's posture with 2 fingers and a sharp eye. The correction improved his balance by a visible margin. Better, she said. Now close your eyes. Gregory snorted. Why? Because proprioception isn't just visual. We're retraining your ankle's internal sensors. Close your eyes. Gregory complied. Within seconds, he teetered forward and had to step off the pad to keep from falling. Okay, Carla said. We'll add that to the homework. Varnax leaned closer to observe the foam pad. Your nervous system is being reconditioned through destabilization? More or less, Carla said without looking up. We're building up his neuromuscular pathways. Injury shuts them down. Rehab reawakens them. Through deliberate imbalance. Exactly, Varnax wrote. Humans willingly compromise equilibrium to restore function. They pursue instability to regain control. Gregory rotated his ankle in slow circles. I didn't realize how much of this was mental until I started doing it. You have to convince your body it's safe again. Your body forgets its own integrity? Kind of. It gets protective. Overcompensates. You have to unlearn the limp. Carla handed him a resistance band. 12 lateral raises. Then calf raises. Then the step-ups. Got it. Varnax watched intently as Gregory looped the band around his foot and began flexing against it. The exertion was modest, but sweat beaded on his brow by the 8th repetition. After the session, as they walked slowly toward the quad, Varnax spoke again. Your recovery process is layered. Physical reconstruction, neurological recalibration, and psychological retraining. Yeah. It's a package deal. And you pay for this? Gregory laughed. Well, my insurance covers most of it. But yeah, technically. Fascinating. On Rek'Tal, injury recovery is state-mandated and passive. That does sound easier. It is not better. Gregory paused near a bike rack. You really think so? Passive healing does not teach. You have adapted not just your body but your comprehension of it. That is a rare outcome. Gregory blinked. Thanks. I think. The next morning, Varnax attended a peer review session with 5 other Rek'Tal students, most of whom had been observing human behaviors in fields like economics, ethics, and culinary arts. When it was his turn, he presented a summary of Gregory's rehabilitation process. He has regained operational capacity through friction, Varnax concluded. Each obstacle introduced has served as both test and catalyst. Yira, a thin-limbed student who had spent the last month studying human conflict resolution, raised a hand. But why would he not allow the limb to rest fully before applying stress again? Because progress for him is not measured by ease, Varnax replied. It is measured by motion. Another student whispered something about masochism. Yira hummed thoughtfully. Perhaps this is why human strategy is so chaotic, she said. They prefer friction to stasis. It is more than preference, Varnax said. It is identity. Later that week, just after dusk, Varnax waited outside the track facility where Gregory was finally cleared to jog again. The lights were on, bathing the rubber lanes in pale gold. A few students lingered at the bleachers, stretching or tying shoes. Gregory emerged from the locker room with a brace on his ankle and an expression of cautious optimism. "Quarter mile only," he said. "Slow pace." Varnax nodded and followed him to the track's edge. Gregory began jogging. His form was uneven at first, but each step seemed to remind his body what it had once known. By the halfway mark, his gait was smoother. At the end, he stopped, breathing hard but smiling. That felt okay. Varnax scanned him for signs of pain. "You are functional." "Barely. But yeah." Varnax noted the way Gregory's breath slowed with time, the way tension left his shoulders, the way his foot struck the ground with more confidence than it had weeks ago. "You have reclaimed your movement." "I have," Gregory said, "and I'll lose it again someday. But that's life, right?" Varnax looked out over the track. "On Rek'Tal, we archive our movements, record them once, then review them in stillness." "That's beautiful," Gregory said. "But I think I prefer the mess." They stood in silence for a while, the hum of the stadium lights filling the space between them. Then Gregory chuckled. "You know, I think I finally figured out what bugs you about us." "Oh, you're used to species that avoid unnecessary harm. We're the opposite. We don't just endure pain. We rehearse it. We lean into it so we're ready when it shows up again." Varnax considered that. "You are not reckless. You are rehearsed." "Exactly." Varnax recorded the phrase in his journal. Then he closed it and watched Gregory take a second lap. The rain had stopped 15 minutes before Varnax arrived at the university's outdoor therapy course, but the pavement still glistened, reflecting the gray clouds like a cracked mirror. He hadn't intended to come again. Gregory's recovery was complete, his gait had normalized, and according to the latest chart Carla had shown them both, his ankle mobility had returned to within 6% symmetry of the uninjured side. The data was conclusive. The subject was resolved. But Varnax found himself standing at the edge of the course anyway, holding a rolled weatherproof notepad and watching Gregory set up cones. "Thought you were done writing about me," Gregory said without looking up. "I am not recording," Varnax replied. "I was walking. I saw you. That is all." Gregory raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. He planted the final cone, stood, and rolled his shoulders. "You're early," he said. "I did not know there was a time." "There's always a time. Just depends on whether you're late for it." Varnax tilted his head. "That is a paradox. Most things worth doing are." Gregory began jogging a slow loop around the course. Varnax noted that the ankle brace was gone completely now. His steps were measured, not cautious but controlled, like someone who had memorized the terrain. After one lap, he paused and stretched his arms. You can walk it if you want, Gregory called. It's not just for runners. I do not require movement for processing. Still good for the joints. Varnax stepped onto the path, keeping a meter's distance behind. He didn't walk for health. He walked because it was easier than standing still with no declared purpose. Gregory stopped at the cones and began a series of short lateral hops. Varnax recognized the drill from a previous therapy session. He had once described it to Kriv as controlled instability with directional intention. Why do you continue these drills? Varnax asked. You have recovered. Recovered's not the finish line, Gregory said. It's the baseline. I'm rebuilding strength now, trying to even out the muscle loss. You experienced atrophy? Of course. I wasn't using those muscles for weeks. They shrink. Doesn't take long. Varnax narrowed his eyes. And yet you are not discouraged by regression. I was, Gregory admitted. But it's not personal. The body doesn't punish you. It just adapts to what you give it. So if you stop using it, it gets efficient at doing nothing. That is horrifying. Gregory laughed. It's just biology. Same thing happens in space. Astronauts lose muscle mass in zero gravity. They have to exercise daily just to maintain. Your species must work constantly to maintain homeostasis. Not constantly. Just consistently. Varnax stepped off the course and stood near a low bench. Your system is inefficient. It's demanding, Gregory agreed, but it teaches discipline. A low buzzing sound caught their attention. Lauren and Kriv approached from the west path, both wearing oversized translucent ponchos that clung awkwardly to their frames. You are participating in exertion rituals again, Kriv observed. I'm training, Gregory said. Not a ritual, just maintenance. You have already completed your rehabilitation cycle, Lauren said. Why do you persist? Because I want to be stronger than before. Kriv's mandibles twitched. You are dissatisfied with your baseline? I'm not dissatisfied, Gregory said. I'm curious. I want to see how far I can go. You risk re-injury. Sure, but that's manageable. Kriv looked at Varnax. You have documented this. What is your conclusion? I no longer have one, Varnax replied. Each time I believe I have reached a definitive understanding, the subject alters parameters. Gregory smiled. That's just being human. No, Varnax said. It is being you. Gregory began setting up a resistance band between two posts. You're welcome to join, he said. We're doing agility drills next. Lauren stepped back. Our skeletal structure does not respond well to sudden torsion. Fair, Gregory said. Didn't either for a while. He looped the band under his foot and began a series of controlled forward lunges. Varnax noted the smoothness of motion, the absence of the micro-hesitations that had characterized earlier stages of recovery. Kriv leaned toward Varnax. He is. Different from most. Not exceptionally, Varnax replied. Statistically, he is within the normal distribution for human perseverance. That cannot be accurate. It is. Gregory switched legs and inhaled through his nose. You know, he said, still facing forward, I used to think getting hurt was the worst thing that could happen. Like it meant weakness. But it's not. It's just temporary. You come back. Lauren's antennae flexed. You find strength in fragility? No, Gregory said. I find strength in returning from it. Kriv was quiet for a moment. Then, cautiously, he stepped onto the path and mimicked Gregory's foot position. This movement, it is for ankle stabilization? Mostly. It also works your hip flexors. Kriv attempted a shallow lunge. His center of gravity shifted awkwardly and he stumbled backward. That is unpleasant. Yeah, Gregory said. At first it is. Kriv tried again. This time he stayed upright. Barely. I do not enjoy this. You're not supposed to. Lauren watched silently, then turned to Varnax. Is this the purpose of their suffering? To make others join it? Varnax shrugged. Perhaps it is to remind themselves they can choose it. That not all pain is imposed. Voluntary discomfort, Lauren said. As proof of autonomy. Possibly. Gregory finished his set and exhaled. Or maybe we just don't want to rust. Kriv was still attempting lunges, each one slightly deeper than the last. Lauren remained on the edge, observing but unmoved. Gregory sat on the bench and wiped his forehead with the sleeve of his shirt. I don't think I'll ever be as fast as I was before, he said. But I'll be better in other ways. Stronger. Smarter about how I move. That's enough. Varnax sat beside him. You do not mourn your limitations? I respect them, but I don't let them freeze me. There was a long pause. The clouds began to thin, letting pale light through in streaks. A bird landed near the cones, pecked at something invisible, then flew off again. Kriv finished his final lunge and stood upright, mandibles parted slightly. My stabilizers are fatigued. That's good, Gregory said. Means they're learning. I am uncertain if I approve. You don't have to. Just keep showing up. Lauren finally stepped onto the course. If I fall, I will hold you responsible. Gregory raised his hands. Deal. Varnax closed his notepad not because he was done studying, but because the study had become unnecessary. The evidence was no longer in need of collection. It was walking, breathing, and standing unshaken in the shadow of its own recovery. Humanity, he realized, did not just endure pain, taught it something, and then built something stronger from what remained. By the time they left the course, the pavement had dried. The cones were packed away. The resistance band was looped neatly around Gregory's wrist. Kriv's gait was uneven, but purposeful. Lauren kept his arms slightly wider than usual, adjusting for balance. Neither spoke of repetition or metrics or regression. They had seen what it meant to return from injury not with fear, but with determination. And they had understood something Varnax had only begun to articulate. It was not in their species to avoid suffering. It was in their nature to repurpose it,